All right, you saw the title of this episode and you clicked on it, hopefully because you're at least interested in the topic of journaling and probably want to incorporate it in your routine more. And you definitely should, because journaling is one of the most powerful, underrated, and practically free tools for emotional understanding, self awareness, and of course, manifestation. So I've been journaling probably since I was like 7. Since I learned to write, I've always loved to write, and I have journals for many different purposes, which I'll go over a little bit later in this episode. But journaling really is one of those things that I feel like is like free therapy. I mean, the amount of breakthroughs and things that I've been able to just kind of work through and understand on my own with journaling is crazy. It's priceless, honestly. So the fact that you're interested in journaling and want to incorporate that into your self-care routine or your mental health routine, I think that's a really good thing. So journaling is great for a number of different reasons, with the first one being that it's great for mental clarity and emotional release. So just writing things down really does help you to process and understand how you feel about them. And you can just sort of brain dump. You don't have to worry about things like sounding good or looking good. You can just kind of write out how you're feeling. And that alone really helps you with your mental clarity. Just kind of getting everything out of your head. I think sometimes we just have so much going on, and to talk to someone is great, but I think to be able to write it out in a way that there's no one on the other side like judging you for whatever you have to say, that can be really helpful. It's also, of course, really great for manifestation and goal setting, because writing things down does have power and it does help you set those intentions in a more solidified way. And on a deeper level, it's great for self-discovery and intuition. Like I mentioned, I feel like journaling is basically free therapy. It's a really good way to uncover some of those subconscious hidden patterns and beliefs and some of the things that maybe you just didn't even know were kind of stuck in your head. It's also really great for timekeeping, just being able to keep track of what was going on in your life at that time. I know we often like to use our photo album in our phones for that, but it's also nice to have it written down in terms of what was happening and how you were feeling about it, just to kind of look back on, or in some cases to verify if you need to. I'm sure a lot of you guys watch those true crime documentaries, and there's always somebody's journal that comes up as a piece of evidence. So in case you need it, it's nice to have like a written record of what happened. And of course, there's a number of science-based studies that show that journaling helps reduce your stress, improve your cognitive functioning, cognitive elasticity, memory, and emotional intelligence. So if you're pretty new to journaling and you're wondering, how do I start? That's probably one of the things that I think people get the most hung up on when it comes to journaling, is just being able to start it, because it is pretty hard to develop that habit. Like in theory, setting up time every day to journal is ideal, but it's pretty hard to develop that as a concrete habit at first. So my best advice is to do it in the easiest and most enjoyable way for you. So for example, if you are an artist, you like to draw, you can have a drawing journal where you can just kind of draw out your thoughts and emotions. If it's easiest for you to put it in your phone, maybe have it like just voice record how you're feeling, that's fine. Or type it out in your notes app, whatever is the easiest. If you like the aesthetics of it all and you want to get really cute journals and cute pens and things like that, whatever makes the most sense for you. And you should set aside a specific time and place for you to journal. Now, this is something that you're doing for you, so don't be so strict and harsh on yourself about journaling every day at a certain time. But just go with whatever works for you. For example, I am truly a night owl, so while I love the idea of journaling every morning, that just normally doesn't happen for me. I'm more likely to journal when my brain is more active at the end of my day. And then you want to choose your format or formats. Not everyone wants to sit and write down with pen and paper, and that's okay. You don't have to. You could type it out on a computer, use an iPad, or use your phone, use the voice recording app so you don't have to actually type anything. It's whatever works the best for you. And I think a really good tip for getting started is to use prompts and guided journals. I'll show you some of the guided journals that I have, but this can really help, because if you don't know what to write about, you don't know where to start, using a guided journal or prompts, you can look up journaling prompts on Pinterest. There are so many good ones, just depending on what you feel like journaling about. If you have a general topic that you want to journal about, but you can also just search journal topics and you can go from there. So that way you kind of have a question or a prompt that you're answering. And that kind of takes some of the stress off of just sitting there looking at the paper and wondering what to write. Of course, I just mentioned a list of reasons why journaling is so great, but the most important reason is the reason why you want to journal, of course. So if you're journaling for manifestation, if you're journaling for emotional awareness, if you're journaling because you're stressed and you just need to get your thoughts out, that's what's really going to determine how you set up your routine. And lastly, there's no pressure for this to be perfect. You don't have to have perfect grammar or spelling or punctuation or any of those things when you're journaling, because you're doing this for you and most likely you're the only person who's going to see it. So just write. It's just a matter of just getting it out. So I want to go through some of the different types of journals that I have and how I use them, because I am a long time journaler. Is journaler a word? Anyway, I've been journaling for a long time and I have a lot of different journals that I use for different reasons. Some of them are pretty common and some of them you probably haven't heard of. So literally this is just some of the journals that I have. This is, yeah. The first one that I'll start with is my manifestation journal. And this is a journal that I always keep. I always, like, once I finish this one out, I'll get another journal to replace it. And I've had this one for a long time, since 2022. And so this is where I like to do all of my manifestation practices. So scripting, which is like writing it out as a story as if it's already happened. Gratitude statements, affirmations, as well as lists. I like to write in detail. If I'm trying to manifest something specific, I'll write out kind of all the details of exactly how I want it to be. And I love this because this is my second one. I have another one that I had completed that I think I started probably in like 2018. So I'll usually have one for a few years or so. And I really like going back through and looking at the things that I wrote down that I wanted to manifest and like how they came to be. Most of them, do end up coming to be. And I just think that's really cool to kind of have that perspective. So if you're trying to manifest, I think it's a good idea to have a manifestation journal. Again, I use this for everything, but if you want a specific journal for a specific goal, that's a good idea too. So the next type of journal that I have, I call this my daily wins journal. And this is something that I started doing because I realized that I am not very good at celebrating myself, and it was something that I wanted to get much better at. So the idea of just kind of at the end of the day, and like I said, I'm not perfect. I don't write in this every single day, but what I would try to do is at the end of the day, write down all of my wins for that day. And these could be anything, just anything that I might like brag to another person about, that like, hey, this thing happened to me today. And like, that was pretty cool. That was a win. Or I accomplished this thing, or I did this thing. And it also kind of ends up being like a bit of a gratitude journal, because at the end of the day, I kind of have to go through and think of at least one good positive thing that happened. And some days, I can only think of one, and other days I've got like a long list of things and I'm like, oh yeah, it's like a really good day. And like I said, I'm super busy. So I'm not that great at writing in this every day. So I'll try to go through and write in it weekly or at least monthly. Now, the next type of journal that I have is actually probably my favorite journal. And this one says, "It is not in the stars to hold our destiny, but in ourselves," by Shakespeare. And when I saw this journal, I immediately knew, I was like, oh yeah, I need that one to be my astrology journal. So of course, as some of you may know, I am a practicing astrologer. So astrology is a big part of my life. And so I kind of use this for, I guess you could say, scientific reasons, like research reasons. So I write down the major transits that are happening. Usually this is like new moons, full moons, retrogrades, eclipses, things like that. And I'll write out the details of that transit. And sometimes I write it ahead of time. Sometimes I write it after the fact. And ideally I like to do both, but I'll kind of write out what's happening, maybe what I predict, what the transits look like. And then I'll write out kind of how I was feeling and just what happened, with that transit related to it. And I think that's really helpful as an astrologer, of course, because I can go back and look at how different transits have been affecting me and how things showed up in my life, perhaps what I thought it was going to look like and then what it actually looked like, is really helpful. And I think even if, if you're not an astrologer, but if you're into astrology a little bit, I think that it can be a cool thing to do, to have a journal that maybe you just do like the new and full moons, because that's easy to keep up with. And especially if you follow me on Instagram, I make it very easy to keep up with what's going on with the astrology. And you can just kind of write out like what the, event is, and then how you're feeling and what happened around that time, and maybe what you relate to that event. Now, my next journal, I call this journal the bad days only journal. And luckily, I don't write in this one very much. But this is where it's a bit of a brain dump journal, but only for the negative thoughts, only for the really bad stuff. So, we have those days, we have those things that we are going through. And I think anytime that I am holding on to any negative thoughts and negative energy, so it's a good place to kind of like just rant and honestly, going through the pages of this journal, they are things that I wouldn't necessarily want to go back and read through again. They're things that I wrote while I was probably just really going through it emotionally, in a rage or crying or, whatever it is. But it's a really good way for me, especially I have an earth moon. So I tend to hold on to emotions for longer than I should sometimes. And so this is a good way for me to kind of just get those emotions out, write it out and let it be there, let it stay on the page. So I highly recommend this, especially, if you are going through something currently in your life. I think it's a really good idea to have somewhere to put all the negative thoughts, right? Because journaling can sometimes seem like this like happy, fun process, but I think if you have a lot of like deep stuff that you need to get out, it can be really helpful to write that somewhere. Now, the next type of journal that I have is a very common one, which is basically a brain dump journal. And mine, it says ideas on it, and that's literally what I mostly use it for. So my brain dump that I typically need to do is my ideas. I feel like I have ideas pop up into my head just all the time. This is definitely the journal that I write in the most. So anytime that I have an idea, a thought, a plan of some sort, I will write it in this journal. And as you see, I even have like sticky notes of things that I'm like, that's going to be a good idea that I need to come back to later. So I definitely recommend that, especially if you are, us creatives. I think we have just so many ideas all the time. So to have somewhere to put them all, kind of keep it organized a bit is helpful. The next type of journal that I have is, I think, a very unique one. And I'm really happy that I started journaling like this. I wish I could remember like what gave me the idea to make this type of journal. But I've had this journal for a long time, definitely over 5 years. But this is a journal where I write letters to people and to things. So that might sound kind of weird, but one of the probably most impactful letters that I wrote in this journal. I used to work at this job. I was working at this water company for like 5 years. And when I was no longer working there, I wrote a letter to the company, and not in the way that you would think, like not to the CEO or, not to the people who own the company, but to the job itself, to what that experience was for me, what it meant for me. And I left the job on pretty good terms. So, but yeah, I realized that I was like, even though I was moving on to something better, I realized that I was kind of like mourning letting go of that job, because it was such an important part of my life for so many years. And so I kind of wrote a letter to the experience itself. And then of course I also have letters in here to people, which I think is really helpful to be able to write how you feel about someone, without the necessity of them knowing. Right. So to just be able to, if you ever just typed out a text message, like in a rant, because you're just like, you just start going, you start typing out a text message and then you delete it. It's kind of like that. So being able to just write the letter out to someone and put all of how you feel with no resistance and no shame or anything like that, because you don't intend for them to read it. So I think that's really helpful. And of course, it can lead to some important conversations. Like I do have letters in here that I've written. I've written letters to almost everyone that I'm really close to and everyone that I have like a strong relationship with. And they're not all of the letters are like bad. So it's not like, I'm so mad at you for this type of things. Like some of them are just kind of reflectionary of like, hey, like I'm realizing this about our relationship. And so I write that down. And in some cases it has led to really impactful conversations that I've been able to have after getting my thoughts out and looking back through it and realizing, okay, yeah, like I need to talk to this person about this. But not always. It doesn't always have to lead to a conversation. I think it's more of just a really helpful therapeutic thing to do. And the next type of journal that I have is a travel journal. So I know this is a very common one that a lot of people have, and I use mine a little bit differently because I don't journal in it while I'm traveling. I don't tend to journal while I'm traveling, to be honest, but I guess you could consider this like a bit of a secondary manifestation journal, but specifically for travels, because traveling is something that is really important to me and is one of my passions. And so I like to write out the trips that I plan to take in this journal. And I generally will do this at the beginning of the year. I'll write out all the places that I want to go that year. And then throughout the year, I add places and I kind of plan out the trips. So I write out why I want to go to that place, the things I want to do while I'm there, and sort of plan it out as if like I'm, preparing to go. And I like reviewing this one, especially at the end of the year too, to just kind of see like what places I went that were on my list or what places I went that were not on my list, and places that I didn't get to go. So yeah, this is one of my favorite journals that I use as well. And lastly, I want to go through some of my guided journals that I have, because I have a handful of guided journals. So the first type of journal is a morning meditations journal, which was really wishful thinking for me because, as I mentioned, I'm a night owl. And so it's really hard for me to start my day with journaling. But I really loved this journal because it actually goes by season. So it starts with spring and then fall, or summer and then fall and then winter. And the prompts each day are like related to the season. So I really love that. And this is one I want to like pick back up and start doing daily. Another guided one that I have is called Find Your Peace. And I actually think I got both of these journals at like Five Below. But this is actually kind of like a workbook. And I haven't started this one yet, but it's something that I intend to start in the spring. And I really just love the idea of this guided journal because it goes through different like topics of like, so there's moving, thinking, knowing, and doing. And it has prompts that help you to connect with your body, to connect with your mind, to connect with your intuition, and kind of to connect with your goals and your creativity. And I think it's just a really, it's called Find Your Peace, but I feel like this is just a really good journal that kind of helps you to know yourself better. So I'm excited. And the inside of this journal, I don't know, it's just really cute. Like there are so many really good like prompts and then like imagery that I just really love. I really love this journal. And so this is one I recently got and I'm excited to start this one in the spring. And in case you're wondering, like, why am I starting it in the spring? Because in the spring, when the sun is in Aries, is when the sun is in my 12th house of the subconscious and intuition and kind of rest and restoration. So that to me is like the best time to focus on journaling and focus on kind of going more inward. Another one that I have is one that a friend gave me that I also plan on starting in the spring. And so this one is Soul Therapy, a 365-day journal for self-exploration, healing, and reflection. And I'm ashamed to say she gave this to me back, I think, on my birthday last year. And I haven't started it yet, but I do plan on starting this one on my birthday this year and then continuing out for the whole year. So that way it'll be from my 365 days. It'll be from my one birthday to the next. And yeah, I think it's really cool. It has different prompts every day. I've kind of gone through and looked at some of the prompts in this journal and I really like them. So let's see, just for example, one is, what qualities do you look for in a close friend? Do you have those characteristics? That's a good question. Another one it says is, if a crystal ball could tell you the truth about yourself, your life, and the future, what would you want to know? Well, I mean, I'm an astrologer, so. Let's see. What emotions are you afraid to show others and why? So I love this. And then there's also no lines on the paper, which I really like that for being able to just, depending on how I want to write, like I can write in whatever way that I want to answer these questions. I imagine probably some of them ask you to maybe draw out something, and that's useful to just have a blank page. So I love that. And then this last one is a really cool journal that I found that is called The Story of My Life. If a story is in you, it has to come out. And I think this is cool because the prompts in here are the type of things that I feel like if I were going to write a memoir, like I would just be like, here, take this journal and read through it, because the prompts are really good for that. So it kind of starts out by asking questions about your childhood and kind of, your family ancestry, the history behind your family's name, what things happened the year that you were born, how your parents met, things like that. And then, you go further on, and there's different chapters. So there's like young adulthood and first, and this is obviously intended to be a journal that you have for like a long time. So this is one that I thought was just super cool. And I feel like if anything, this would be a journal that I think it would be really cool for like my kids or my grandkids to find this journal and read through it and be like, wow, like her whole life is in this journal. So those are some of my guided journals. And then a few other journals that I have. I know you're like, this girl has a lot of journals. I do. I journal a lot. So a few of the other journals that I have are, I have a dream journal, and that is I use an app. If I can remember it, I'll put the app on the screen, but I use an app for that because it's just so much easier when you first wake up in the morning to, go to an app rather than like trying to, write it down. But while it's still fresh, I can literally just voice record into the app what happened in the dream and go into as much detail as I need to. And then it's a really good thing because one, record keeping, it makes it really easy to like go through and search. Like if there's a certain topic that you keep dreaming about, you can search it in the app and then see what each of those dreams kind of were, as well as it will categorize for you, at least the app that I use, and a lot of dream journal apps will do this. It'll kind of categorize them by types of dreams or emotions that you felt in those dreams. And some dream journal apps actually will give you like an interpretation as well. And the last way that I do journaling is gratitude journaling. So this is another one that I try to stick to as much as I can in the mornings. Like I said, I'm not like journaling in the morning doesn't work that well for me in terms of like setting up a piece of paper and pen and writing. Even I've tried putting it right next to my bed, like on the nightstand, so that I'll just do it in the morning, and doesn't always work for me. I'm very slow to wake up and my mind just doesn't fully cut on until a couple of hours later. But one of the ways that I do like to do this in the morning is I like to make sure that I say a few gratitude statements before my feet even touch the floor. And something I was doing for a while was putting this in my notes app, because I like to kind of go back through and look at, especially sometimes it feels like from your perspective that life just kind of sucks, right? And so I like to go back through and look at my gratitude list and see like, well, on this day I woke up feeling this way. I was grateful for these things, and on this day I had these things to be grateful for. And so just having that perspective is something that really helps. And I will say, I think that if you don't do any other type of journaling, that the main ones that I think would be most important for you is a gratitude journal and a brain dump journal. So having somewhere where you just simply write things that you are thankful for whenever you think about them, or set a time, for when you want to do them, and having somewhere to just write the things that are in your mind to just kind of get it all out. So I really hope that you found this episode interesting and helpful. And as you can see, I have so many journals for so many different things, and you can pretty much journal about whatever you want to and whatever you need to journal about. And I really want to invite you to try some of the different journaling styles and see what works for you. Try to journal in the traditional way with, pen and paper. Try to use a guided journal. Try to do maybe voice recordings and see how that works for you. If you like to draw, or maybe even if you don't like to draw, if you think you're not good at drawing, get a sketch pad and make that a journal that you write in. I really want to invite you to try out different ways of journaling and see what sticks for you the most. So if you enjoyed this episode, definitely be sure to like, rate, and subscribe. And if you want more in-depth exclusive content, you can definitely check me out over on Patreon. And if you want to know more about what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis and what the stars are doing on a day-to-day basis, then you can follow me over on Instagram at theastrolotus. Be sure to check out one of my other episodes if you haven't already. And until next time, take care and keep on shining.